I think that we have established over the years that I am a nerd. And one of the things that I am nerdy about is language. I love languages. When I was a little kid, my parents had this library, and among the books were old textbooks of German and Spanish. And I would pull those out and just try to read through them and completely fail to understand or learn or grasp any German or Spanish. When I was in high school, I took French. When I was in college, I took Greek. When I was in seminary, I took just a little bit of Hebrew. Since I graduated from seminary, I've spent time on the apps, what I assume everybody means when they say the apps, learning some Spanish and some Dutch and some Creole and even some American Sign Language. And as I said to a couple of people during the passing of the peace, I've tried more than once to learn Welsh, a language that I am convinced is impossible, which is why no one in Wales speaks it. I love how languages work. I love the mechanics of languages. I love the variety of different ways that different languages can express the same idea. How French can change the ending of a word to tell you about 20 different tenses, but Haitian Creole, derived in part from French, has about 7,000 little particles that you just put before the word to tell you when it happens. I love the ways that different languages divide the world, slice up time in tenses, slice up nouns by the ways that they are doing things, slice up the world by genders that include masculine and feminine and neuter and animate and inanimate and gods and people and animals and rocks. I love the incredible variety of ways that we as humans have found to express ourselves, to understand each other, and to be understood by each other. But I also know that language divides us. Language stratifies us. The way that we use even English tells you something about who we are and what we do and where we sit in society. Probably everyone here asks a question, but people elsewhere asks a question and are looked down on because of it, even though asks is a perfectly acceptable form of the word dating back at least 1,000 years. There are versions of the Bible that tell you to ask so that you can receive. We imagine, especially in church settings, that these and thous are appropriate for God, the sovereign of the universe, in all of their great formality, even though these and thous are informal, verging on kind of mean when you're talking to a superior. You would never address a king or a lord or a god as thee, unless you were just coding it in sarcasm. And of course, there's the question of what languages people speak and who speaks those languages. About 9 years ago, there was an article in the United Kingdom's Daily Mirror. Princess Charlotte, Princess of Wales, already speaks 2 languages at just 2 years old. It's amazing, it's impressive, it's the very kind of thing that royals with their great education and their governesses and their nannies would do. And so, of course, immediately someone replied with, "So do most children of immigrants, but I guess it's less impressive when they're poor." The way that we treat language tells us something about who we are. The way that people speak tells us something about who they are. And we have invented so many ways to divide ourselves and stratify ourselves by language. The languages that we speak and the ways that we speak them. In our reading today, at the end of this sermon series, we are back at the beginning. The disciples are gathered together. 11 of them. They're down one from earlier. They'll replace him later, but they haven't yet, and they're trying to figure out what to do and how to go on and what this is supposed to be. They know that Christ has been resurrected. They know that Christ is risen. They know that new things are possible, but there are details to work out. And then suddenly, all at once, tongues of fire appear and settle on them, and they find themselves speaking other languages. The languages of surrounding communities, the languages of visitors to Jerusalem, languages that they have heard but do not know. And the people outside, the people who hear them, are astonished. Those men are from Galilee. They speak Aramaic, and they speak it with that Galilean twang. What are they doing speaking Greek? What are they doing speaking High Hebrew? What are they doing speaking Latin? What are they doing speaking Cretan? How am I understanding them? And more than that, because there are only 11, and there are people from all over the world. They are hearing languages that those apostles, that those disciples are not speaking. They are understanding things in their own language. And I want to be clear here, because this is important. Simply speaking another language is not, in fact, a miracle. It is something that you learn to do. Suddenly speaking another language, especially one that other people understand, especially one that other people are surprised that they understand, is definitely a miracle. If even my Spanish became fluent all at once, we would all be shocked. And if I suddenly started preaching in Norwegian or Icelandic or Japanese, we would start by being astonished and then probably call for an ambulance. But even that amazing miracle of suddenly speaking other languages, of suddenly understanding things, of suddenly getting it, is not the miracle that is the point. The point, the miracle, the deep down thing that is happening, is suddenly these disciples are understood, and suddenly people understand. And to be understood and to understand others is an amazing miracle. It is a thing that hardly ever seems to happen. So often we are so busy dividing up the world, stratifying the people, putting everyone and everything in their categories, that we forget to understand anyone. Sometimes we are so closed off and inside ourselves, worried what others might say or think or do if they knew us, that we try not to be understood. But to understand and be understood, that is a miracle. That takes some Holy Spirit. That takes the God who is love breaking into the world and saying, "Come together. Be a people. Understand and be understood," as we always are by God, by each other. And I hope that as we have worked our way through the book of Acts, we have seen that that is a bit of a theme of Acts. That these disciples, that this church, that at first thought that it was for a select group of Jewish people, discovered that it was maybe for everyone. That this group that thought that maybe it was just a Jewish thing discovered that Gentiles could come in. And more than that, that Gentiles could come in without becoming Jewish first. And more than that, that Gentiles could come in while still being, in fact, Gentiles. Even centurions could come in. Even Romans could come in. Even the powers of empire could be redeemed and come in. This is one of the hardest parts of our faith. This is one of the hardest parts of this thing that we call Christianity. This is one of the hardest parts of this following of Jesus. So often we avoid it. So often we say, this is for us. It is not for them, unless they become like us and fit in, unless they get into our box, unless they become someone who we can, in fact, understand and be understood by, unless they change. But the reality is that this faith, this Holy Spirit calls us not to stay in ourselves, not to make everyone the same, not to find some unity of conformity, not to make everyone speak English like an Iowan or Aramaic like a Galilean, but to open ourselves up, to let ourselves be transformed, to let ourselves be changed, to learn how other people speak, how other people see, how other people understand, and to let other people learn how we speak, how we see, how we understand, and maybe through that exchange to find new ways to speak and to see and understand. The good news that I have been preaching is that Christ is risen and new things are possible. And one of the new things that is possible is understanding and being understood. One of the new things that is possible is building a community that is diverse. One of the new things that is possible is building a reign of love that includes everyone, that invites everyone to the table because everyone has something to bring to the table. And that is not found just in learning Spanish or Dutch or Creole or American Sign Language or Welsh. That is also found in learning to speak and to understand liberal and conservative, Republican and Democrat, country mouse and city mouse. It is all about learning to understand and to be understood by each other, no matter who each other is, no matter where each other is on life's journey. We started this sermon series in a moment where Jesus was ascending to the heavens and where angels appeared to ask the disciples, "Why are you looking up towards heaven? He'll come back the same way he went." And I asked you why we look towards heaven when we are powered by the Spirit and there is work to be done here on earth. To nurture God's reign of love, to make a world where Christ will be welcomed when he returns. And I am telling you now that the core of that work is understanding each other, is talking to each other, is listening to each other, is getting each other. Again, no matter who each other is and no matter where each other is on life's journey. Whenever we do that, we are nurturing God's reign of love. And as we do that, we cease to be people from every nation under heaven and begin to become people from the nation of God's people. So let us not stand here or sit here looking up towards heaven, imagining something that is far off, that is distant, that is yet to come. And let us instead start building God's reign of love here on earth. Start nurturing God's reign of love here on earth. Start tending to God's reign of love here on earth. Until all of us, every last one of us, speaking a million different languages in a million different ways, are on the inside, abiding in love. That is something we can do because we are in fact powered by the Spirit that lets us be understood and helps us understand each other. Thanks be to God.